In his book, Mere Christianity, says this about his argument against God, about all the injustice in the world. He said, as an atheist, my argument against God was that the universe seems so cruel and unjust. But how had I got this idea of just and unjust? A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of what a straight line is. You wouldn't know what a crooked line was unless you knew what a straight line was. You wouldn't know what injustice was unless you knew what justice was. And you wouldn't know what justice was unless there was a standard of justice beyond yourself. Lewis goes on to say, look, if it's just my personal opinion that there's evil in the world, then my personal opinion is not a real argument against God. See, if I admit there's real evil in the world, I have to admit there's a standard of good. Now, for those of you who were in here the other night, let me just say this is going to be review here for just a minute, but let me just point this out, that if there is no God, then you can't say that this was really wrong. 9/11. Oh, you could say you didn't like it. You could say it was inconvenient. You could say it made you sad, but you can't say it was objectively morally wrong. Why not? Well, because that's just your opinion against bin Laden's opinion. It's just two human beings arguing here. If there's no standard beyond humanity, who's to say you're right? Well, there is no right. It's just your opinion. Same thing. If there is no God, you can't say that this was morally wrong. The Holocaust. That's just your opinion. It's just your opinion against Hitler's opinion. Now, every sane individual intuitively understands that this is objectively morally wrong. It's not just your opinion. It's not just something like a taste or a flavor. It's objectively morally wrong. And if it's objectively morally wrong, there has to be somebody who made it objectively morally wrong. Every prescription has a prescriber. If there is a prescription on humanity that says this is wrong and say love is right, then somebody must have prescribed it. Suppose you go to the pharmacist with a prescription and you hand it to him, and he says, hey, who prescribed this? And you go, nobody. Are you going to get the medicine? No. All prescriptions have prescribers, and there is a prescription out there. In fact, you can look at it this way. How do you know who's right and who's wrong, Mother Teresa or Hitler? How do you know who's right and who's wrong? A standard. There's got to be a standard. Mother Teresa's not the standard. Hitler's not the standard. In fact, here's an easy way of looking at this. How do you know which map of Scotland is better? What would you need to see? You'd have to see a real place called Scotland. And when you see a real, unchanging place called Scotland, you can see that map A, while it's not perfect, is a better representation of the real Scotland than is map B. If Scotland doesn't exist, these two maps are meaningless, right? Likewise, if there's no standard of morality beyond Mother Teresa and Hitler, then anything you say about their morality or immorality is meaningless as well. That's just your opinion. But since here, real Scotland does exist, we can see that map A is better. Not perfect, but better. That's exactly what you do when you compare Mother Teresa and Hitler. Mother Teresa wasn't the standard. Hitler wasn't the standard. There's a standard beyond both of them by which we measure both of them. And we say Mother Teresa lived up to that standard better than did Hitler. Again, C.S. Lewis said it best. He said, the moment you say that one set of moral ideas can be better than another, you are, in fact, measuring them both by a standard, saying that one of them conforms to that standard more nearly than the other, but the standard that measures two things is something different from either. When you measure Mother Teresa against Hitler, there's a standard that's different from both Mother Teresa and Hitler, and you're comparing Mother Teresa and Hitler to that standard. You're seeing how they measure up. You're admitting there's a real morality out there. So there is a real morality out there. And if you say Hitler was evil, you only know that because you have some idea of what good is. And you're saying he's fallen short of that standard. So, bottom line, does evil disprove God? No. Evil does not disprove God. The existence of evil actually presupposes God because objective evil can't exist unless God does. In fact, this may seem a little strange, but evil doesn't disprove God. It may prove there's a devil out there, but it doesn't disprove God. Because Evil just points to good. Evil only makes sense in light of good. So there may be a malevolent being out there that is causing some of this evil, but that doesn't mean that there's no good, there's no God. In fact, evil, as we'll see in a minute, can't exist on its own.